Hello everyone and welcome to WGBS TV Live, brought to you by SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. My name is Steve Eunice. In this, our July 2nd, 2019 show, we're going to be covering a range of topics, including a never before seen new image of Henry Cavill as Superman from the Justice League movie. We're going to be talking about Krypton's latest episode, Young Justice, Outsiders, comic books, and so much more. We'll also be turning to you to take your questions and comments on any particular Superman topic you would like to discuss. And to let you know how all that works and how you can get involved in tonight's show, let me introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Steve. Now, since WGBS Live is all about Superman, we want to hear from the Superman fans that are watching us right now on YouTube. Hi, everybody. So around the halfway mark of the show, and if we don't have too much on the docket, we will start taking your calls if we can. To do this, you're going to need Skype. Go to Skype, find Superman homepage, and message us that you'd like to be part of the show. Now, a couple of important things. One, message us. Don't just call, because it kind of screw up what Steve and I are doing right now. So wait for us to reply. And if we do get to you and you get on, please, if you're listening via like a speaker or anything that isn't like a headset, please turn that down because we are on a delay.
Yes, indeed. So that's how you get involved in tonight's show. And if you're watching this live via YouTube, then we invite you to join in and chat with fellow watchers, fellow viewers, as we go along. Ask questions, post your comments, and Michael and I will keep an eye on those as the show continues. And a huge thank you to our sponsor and patron, Douglas Meacham. We appreciate your support. And if you want to get involved and be a sponsor of the Superman homepage, head to patreon.com/Superman homepage. Well, Mike, as you can see, I'm reporting this week from the Hall of Justice. Just, getting some stuff ironed out with the Super Friends. Just thought I should, get things done from here this week.
There is a city hall about hour and a half north of where I am right now that looks a lot like the Hall of Justice. It's kind of funny. It's for the Sewanee, Georgia. And I drove by it, and I was just like, just driving along. I was following some people because I was helping someone move, and I look over, I'm like, why is the Hall of Justice in the middle of Georgia? So at some point I'll have to go up there, but just driving an hour for no good reason outside of the fact that something looks like the Hall of Justice just doesn't sound like all that much fun.
Yeah, well, before I forget, I wanted to mention to everybody that there won't be a show next week. We'll be back in a fortnight. Just something's come up, and I will be unable to be here for next week's show. So have a week off. Enjoy the Tuesday night off, and then we'll be back on the following Tuesday, which will be July 16th. So no show July 9th. We'll be back July 16th. But we have tonight's show to get through, and as we like to do, we start with movie news. And there was an image of Henry Cavill, a behind-the-scenes photo from filming of Justice League that was posted on the internet this past week on Reddit. And it was taken during that filming of the scene that never got included in the final cut of the movie, in which Alfred, he's in the Batcave of Superman after returning from the grave, comes and visits Alfred, and he says to him, he said you'd come, now let's hope you're not too late. And Henry's not necessarily got his eyes open in this photo, but you can see how the costume looks in just regular lighting.
Yeah, that scene getting cut out of the movie was one of those things where, on one hand, I kind of see why they did it, because seeing Superman when you saw Superman, it was more of a reveal. But at the same time, it's a really nice sequence of seeing Superman and Alfred together, because Alfred was the one guy in BVS that was constantly telling Batman, this man is not your enemy. So getting to kind of see them together, and I always kind of like seeing Superman and Alfred together anyways, because it's such a weird juxtaposition. Because Alfred's kind of used to dealing with Bruce and his kind of idiosyncrasies, and I just see Superman as being like the polite guy that Alfred's just not expecting.
Yeah, so it's like not the greatest of photos, and it's not really necessarily very revealing of anything, but it's always good to see these kinds of behind-the-scenes photos, just to give us an idea of how things are filmed, the green screens, the fact that the cape is not attached during filming; it's put there later on for some unknown reason. Don't know why. You can't have the cape when he's just standing there talking. It's a bit weird.
I was thinking about that because I was kind of watching just the BVS on TV about a month or so ago. It was on while we were making breakfast, and I was thinking about the CGI cape versus like a real cloth cape, and Superman, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies kind of got around having the cape look different by having different lengths depending on the scene. And I know they did that for Batman too. In the various Batman films, when you see him sitting in the Batmobile, he doesn't have like this gigantic flowing cape because it would take like 5 minutes to get him into the car. And I was thinking that, well, does it really make it look more comic book authentic? Like, just to have it, where they can control how the cape moves rather than dealing with how something physically moves. And I gotta say, I don't think there's a, I think either way works. Because I didn't even know in Man of Steel that the cape was CGI until after I saw the film. So it's not like some of the CGI in Superman Returns that looks like bad video game cutscene footage. It was so authentic that it just kind of fooled you. But I don't know. It's just the one time it bugs me is when I see behind the scene photos like that, and he's just wearing like the little clasps, and it's just like I kind of want to see Superman wearing his cape.
Well, here's the image just there in the bottom right hand corner of your screen right now, showing you the final, the actual cape there using CG. If you told me that was computer graphics for the cape attachments over the shoulder, I would have had no idea. You could have got away with having it just, down the middle of his back and not actually being a cape, just kind of a thing attached there just to make it look, for the close-up scenes. But they didn't. They don't do that. They actually do them in the computer afterwards. So it's quite interesting that is the case, and I'm surprised. Just for something that simple, that you need to go and put computer-generated cape cloth around and over his shoulders.
Yeah, it seems like you could basically have like a reverse Dickie essentially. Whereas instead of having something here that kind of makes it look like he's wearing a shirt, just having it look like the cape's just kind of sloped behind him. It's, I guess ultimately it really doesn't matter. This is just like fanboy niggling.
Yeah, just interesting.
It's just weird to think. We see so much behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the only time when the Christopher Reeve, like the first two Christopher Reeve movies, for example, outside of maybe some behind the scenes stuff in like the Treasury book they did, or maybe Starlog, the only time you saw behind the scenes stuff was like that special that they finally put on the 14 disc set back in 2006. So now we see like stuff from the street, stuff from like them shooting it, and it's just, I'm sorry, it's like people are getting excited for seeing a bunch of actors in half costumes against green screen, and it's just like that. It's not like the magic is ruined for me, but it's at the same time I'm like I'd rather just like to see them, in the finished product, I guess.
I guess when you're waiting for a movie to come out and you're seeing these behind the scenes photos during the production time, it's like, yeah, it's really happening. It kind of gives you a bit of hope that this thing is real. It's not just hearsay. They're actually physically doing this. So in that way, I can understand the interest in seeing these things. But in the comments, Mike is saying, is it Mike? No, Brad. Is there any official word about Henry Cavill, definitely not being Superman again. There's nothing official. They won't go out and tell you an actor is not something. They will go out and tell you when an actor has been cast, but they won't until there is a new Superman film in production and casting is being done. You won't hear about who is or who isn't in the movie. You'll only hear about the movie's happening and here's the cast. So until that point in time, we do know that Henry Cavill is involved in the Netflix series The Witcher, and I've seen some new photos and images just released this last couple of days of some of those cast members in full costume. And he's able to take on whatever role he wants. He just looks so good in everything he does.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's like, if we learned anything from like Ben Affleck, it was officially announced that he wasn't Batman, and then that was debunked, and then he finally said, I'm not going to be Batman. But then it seemed like he changed his mind, and it was only until we saw that Robert Pattinson was cast. But here's the weird thing. We now live in a world where even if we hear another actor is playing a character and is in a movie about that character, that doesn't mean that the other actor is out of a job. Just because Joaquin Phoenix is playing the Joker in a Joker movie does not mean that Jared Leto won't be the Joker in the next Suicide Squad film, because they're two completely different things. Now, I personally, call me old-fashioned, which I'm sure many people do, call me a fuddy-duddy, which is a silly thing to say, but I'm just, I'm okay with like the TV stuff, right? Because we lived in a world where Tom Welling was Clark Kent and Brandon Routh was Clark Kent Superman. But that was like TV and that was movies, and those were two very distinct things.
Yeah.
But to do several different movies, I think at some point you're going to confuse the audience. And the reason why I say that is that, yeah, we're into this stuff. But I have been around like coworkers that don't follow the comics, and they were confused why there was a Flash in Justice League, but he's not the same Flash that's on TV. How does that work? So I think at some point, I think it comes down to branding, that you're diluting the brand by having more than one actor play the character.
Yeah, you are, but then you've got the animated film like Into the Spider-Verse, which is actually all about multiple and different Spider-Men. But I guess that was the context of the story, so people just kind of got that and understood that was the concept of the story, that there were different Spider-Men from different universes and different realities coming into one, and it was pretty well done. I quite enjoyed that animated film, and obviously so did others because it won awards. But you're right, it does get confusing when people are going to see a movie and there is different actors playing the same role or the same character across different films. Most people would get over it. Most people would just go, well, why? And then just watch it anyway. But because we're into it, I think I don't think it damages a lot of what, whether or not you're into it or not. I think people just accept it after a while, and there might be a lot of questions and there might be some confusion, but I don't think it's going to ultimately ruin the film or, make it a failure at the box office.
Yeah, I'm still of the opinion that Warner Brothers would not lose money on a Into the Spider-Verse type movie for Superman, where you had like different versions, like the I don't want to. They probably wouldn't go full out because they want the film to go international, but they wouldn't have like a Nazi Superman, but they would have a Nazi-like Superman and a regular Superman, maybe an older, but then throw in things like Calvin Ellis and the character from Earth 2 and Captain Carrot and all these things, where I think you could do something similar to the Spider-Man film, in that you're celebrating the character by showing that in this character's history he has been many things. I just want to see it. Do that. Do an animated film.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the opinion that at this point, a like full blown Pixar quality Superman animated film would probably do pretty well. Unfortunately, it would take like 15 years to make. Because I was watching an interview with Tom Hanks. He was talking about Toy Story. First Toy Story came out in like Thanksgiving of 1995. He started recording that movie in 1991. So it's just like, so they take an incredibly long time to make, so you couldn't like churn them out like they would do a live action film.
Mm.
But I'm just pie in the skying it here, really.
Hey, it's not a bad idea. It's an interesting concept. But we look at other films that didn't get made, and specifically Superman Flyby back in the early 2000s. And artist Peter Ramsey shared a number of storyboards that he drew back in the day when he was working on this film. Posted them on his Twitter account, and we'll take a look at some of them right now, where we have a look at what we see here, some images of Superman and Ty-Zor flying through Metropolis. We got image of Superman flying around the world, and then there's one of Superman and Ty-Zor battling in or around Metropolis. And you could have sworn, looking at that, if it didn't say Ty-Zor, that it was possibly some of the battle between Superman and Zod.
It's interesting that this stuff we're seeing more and more of this stuff kind of come to light. I guess, I don't know, enough time has passed where, and obviously, they've made like 4 films with Superman in it since then. So this isn't like leaking anything. I don't know how this film would have gone. I remember being of the opinion before the death of Superman Lives, what happened, and thinking, maybe it should have come out, and then seeing what they were going to do, and it's just like, no, we definitely got the better end of that. But this would have been so different. I mean, just not having Krypton get destroyed, for one thing, is just such it's basically like, okay, we're going to do a Batman film, but his parents don't die. They're just injured, and then he becomes Batman anyway. It's just like, no, that's kind of an important part of the background.
So true. Now, if you're wondering, so I posted some of these and spoke about this on our Instagram account, and people were like, Superman Flyby? Like, what was that? And it was a script written by J.J. Abrams, who's obviously gone on to bigger and better things since then, and it was supposed to be directed by what was his name? Brett Ratner, actually. There's a couple of them that are in there, and then it was cancelled, canned, reworked, and then eventually Bryan Singer came on board and did Superman Returns. So it was one of the many ideas that were thrown about in between Superman 4 and then what became Superman Returns. There was a long period there where many scripts got written, many ideas were bandied about. Some got into production, some had, got a lot further along than others, but ultimately never got made. And Superman Flyby was one of those, with a script and storyboards, pretty much the extent that it got to. Oh, and some suits.
There's some stills also of like Brandon Routh and Henry Cavill in the suit that they were going to wear, which, man, that thing looked plasticky.
Yeah. Very New 52, before New 52 came about.
Yeah, I wonder if Jim Lee kind of stumbled across those designs. He's just like, what Superman's costume needs? A lot of lines. Just a lot of lines. And, just throw that in there. It's kind of funny. I almost want to, if I had the time, kind of like do a deep dive and dig out because I've been downloading scripts since 2000, but really go through them and try to find as much of that's out there, like these that now these storyboards are out there, and really kind of study what they wanted to do. Because here's the thing about a script is that, as who was it? John Peters, no, Peter Goober, excuse me, of Goober and Peters, who produced the first Batman film. He's fond of saying that a script is a roadmap, but it's not like set in stone. That's why it's called filmmaking, because it's everything is changing as it goes. So when you read a script, or if you read a script of a film that never got made, you got to realize that this probably would have gotten shifted somewhere in the process.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you can't look at it and go, "Wow, that's a terrible idea." But at the same time, it's almost like you have to look at the script on two levels. Like, did I like it, and would this be what they would have actually made?
Indeed, and we will never know because they did not get made, and we can speculate. And it'd be interesting to see, as I've heard bandied about before, some of these scripts get made into animated films, because that would be interesting to see. How they would get translated into from what the script was, and how much would get changed from what's on the page. All right, well, let's move and shift gears into the TV side of things. And the latest episode of Krypton aired last Wednesday night there in the US and Thursday here in Australia, and it was titled Will to Power, and it was the third episode of season 2. And our reviewer, Michael J. Petty, gave it a 4 out of 5, saying that Krypton continues to prove itself as one of DC's best television series out there right now, and probably the best Superman series since Smallville. Sorry, Supergirl, you had a wonderful first season, he says.
I am making a promise, since we're off next week. I am actually going to catch up on this.
Yeah, you should. It's crazy, season 2. It's just a real deviation from what they did in season 1 as far as the tone of the show. There is still very much the dark and serious elements with Zod and what's happening with Lyta and that whole thing. But the stuff with Seg and Adam and Lobo and a bit of the Brainiac stuff, Jesus, just so much more lighthearted and just so much of a fun romp through this, the planet Kolu. It's crazy. It's nuts.
I think when you look at the first season, it was trying to tell what is basically a story of a rebellion, and it worked on that level. But I think when you working with these projects that are basically, the what happened before, issue 1 of whatever book, is that the best idea, and I get this from people who watched Gotham, because I didn't really watch Gotham, but the people that I know whose opinion kind of lines up with mine, the thing I kept hearing over and over again was, it just got crazier and crazier. And I think with this sort of thing, you have to do that, because there's no reason to try to make it, match up with some other version of the character. You've already thrown that out the window by doing what you're doing. So why not have a lighthearted tone with Lobo being kind of, what he's supposed to be, which is kind of a comic relief. Yeah.
And, I know that's not to everyone's liking. I've heard a lot of people saying it's just getting ridiculous, it's just getting silly. But there are, as I said, still those very serious, dramatic elements of what's happening on, with Zod and the rebellion, and with the baby, and with everything that's happening there on the serious side of things. But I just love the dynamic between Adam and Seg. It just seems to be a real kind of buddy, almost like an escape film where the two have kind of gotten out of jail and are on the run from someone who's hunting them down, and there's a lot of hijinks that happen along the way. It kind of has that kind of feel to it. But here, there are some pretty high stakes that at play here. And while Lobo is played for a bit of laughs, is pretty foreboding as far as his what his ultimate goal is. But it's just the way, because he can regenerate and he's able to do whatever he wants to do. They're really playing on that. Like you've probably seen in the promos where he throws his arm and it goes through that barrier, kind of the force field, and it gets chopped off. Well, then what he does next is just hilarious, to be able to get himself inside that force field, and it is just I just didn't see that coming, but it's so well done, and and the actors are doing a really good job, and you can obviously see that they're having fun or had fun filming those particular scenes. And I am looking forward. I think it's about time that we, now that we're 3-4 episodes in, that we do see Seg and Adam get off Kolu and back into Krypton and back into the main characters' lives, so that we can see them, start to, join the rebellion and fight it back against Zod. I think we've seen enough of this period of their escape from the Phantom Zone and from Kolu.
Yeah, I think you can only do that so often, or so long. Essentially, it's like when when I was watching Titans, for example. The fact that they got Raven's mother out as fast as they did surprised me. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, good, this didn't drag on for the entire season. Because I think when you have these shorter seasons, you don't have a lot of time to play with things. You have to move. You can't do an episode that just focuses on one thing and take your time with it. So I think it makes for more fast-paced pacing for the show.
Interesting one. Mike asking, he doesn't understand how Lobo's jewelry in his hair regenerates. If you blow off your limb and you had a ring on that limb and it regenerates, does the ring come back?
Maybe he's grabbed it off screen from the hand and just put it back on. I don't know. This is the thing. It's like when you watch shows from like the 60s and 70s and even the 80s, and they clone somebody, and that person not only like looks like the person or has their abilities, but they have all their memories too. And that's really not how it would work, because you're just physically cloning somebody. So maybe it's just one of those things that you're really not supposed to think about.
Yeah, too much. Exactly. Well, let's push on and look to this next week's episode of Krypton Season 2. It is titled Danger Close, and it is the 4th episode of the 2nd season, and it will air on Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time. So let's check out the trailer, the promo for this episode of Krypton.
Welcome to General Zod's Candor.
This war is not over.
You and I waste time quarreling when we could be building.
I just know there is a version of the future where all of this goes too far. Please, my son.
So there you have it. There is the promo for Danger Close, which is the next episode. And there's also a sneak peek, a couple of sneak peeks that we'll be posting on the website tomorrow morning, first thing before the episode airs tomorrow night. So check those out on the Superman homepage. No, it's just funny. Sorry, Michael, I just had your microphone muted there for a second, accidentally. Yeah, I mean, so do you want to retell that story you were just saying about the...
It's just like what I was saying was, when I was watching the season premiere of Lois and Clark in '95, they fly up and they're having this conversation in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I say aloud, just not really thinking that I wasn't alone, it's just like, wow, how does that work? The air is too thin. And my brother-in-law goes, yeah, the guy from another planet that flies is having a conversation in the upper atmosphere, and that's your problem. So...
It is funny how we will accept certain things and then other things throw us out of the story, and we won't, like I said, the things on his dreadlocks for Lobo when his head regenerates, or the fact that his makeup's still on.
Yeah, this is like everything's fine.
All good.
We're a funny species.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, let's take a quick break. We're at the halfway mark of tonight's program. Play a few messages, and then we're going to come back on the other side to talk about Young Justice Outsiders. Well, we get to that right after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be back in a moment with the exciting climax of today's episode. So stand by.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. No, it's SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. SupermanHomepage.com, covering the world of Superman from the 1930s to today. News, reviews, rumors, and reports. SupermanHomepage.com for all your Superman comics, TV shows, movies, cartoons, radio shows, and more. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Man of Steel and more. SupermanHomepage.com.
Thanks, Superman Homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
I'm Matt Bomer. I'm the voice of Superman in Superman Unbound, and this is the Superman Homepage.
Right here on Superman Homepage.
This Superman movie is brought to you by Canon, the world's leading camera manufacturer.
Quick and happy.
Canavision 8 camcorders.
I thought you were Superman, huh?
Hey, I am.
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon.
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon. What a great tagline.
I'm sure they came up with that, and everyone just went to lunch. High fives all around, I'm telling you.
Alright, as I mentioned before the break, we're going to be talking about Young Justice Outsiders because new episodes are now available on the DC Universe digital streaming service. That's right, we had a mid-season break for Young Justice, but 3 new episodes are now available on the DC Universe service. We have a number of images that were also released for these 3 episodes, which you can now watch one after the other or 3 in a row, whatever you like. And new episodes will be available on each Tuesday moving forward. And in this first episode that we're looking at photos from now, which was titled Influence, or Images from Now, the team reassembles while the Justice League faces a new threat in space. And then episode 15 is titled Leverage. A new Gamma Squad sets out on its first mission. And then episode 16, Illusion of Control. The team gives thanks for what they have and might lose.
I like the fact that when Nightwing's in his civilian outfit, he's still wearing a jacket with like blue shoulder pads to show you that he's still Nightwing. Doesn't matter.
That's it.
They change. Oh my! They straight up changed. I'm still waiting to watch season 2. That's a little disappointing that they changed Superman's costume.
Let's have a look at that image that you're talking about there. Where are we? That's some belt that he's got on in that one. But yeah, I can see what you mean there. The belt theirs has changed a little bit. Still the round belt, but it's kind of got some kind of thing happening around the sides that kind of match what they did in Man of Steel, although not red.
Yeah. And the one shot of the girl with the leggings that were the skeleton. Yeah, my wife has like 15 of those. So that was cool. Now I actually have to watch it because I'm curious as to what that's all about. So
there you go. So yeah, 3 new episodes available now. You can watch them on the DC Universe digital streaming service, and then moving forward, each Tuesday there will be a new episode available, and we have the episode listings for most of those or some of those moving forward at the Superman homepage under the TV section of our website. So check out Young Justice Outsiders on DC Universe if you're lucky enough to have that in your country. Okay, let's change tack again and look at the comic books. And this past week, Action Comics 1012 was released, and this was again written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by a different artist, Simon Kudransky. Probably pronouncing that right, incorrectly. Sorry, not right. This was very much not much of Superman in it. We saw Superman a little bit at the beginning. He's distracted by the whole Leviathan situation and had to go off on before, with that happening, he has to go off on that off-world mission that we obviously saw previously with Supergirl and Krypto and John all involved with Jor-El. But this very much moved to, we saw him and Lois in the fortress a little bit at the beginning of this issue, but it was very much all about Rose and Thorn and what was happening with Miss Good and the reporter Robinson. Just very much a lot of intrigue setting up what's going to be happening there with everything that's going on with Leviathan.
Yeah, the whole... I'm still kind of going back and forth. I'm waffling, I guess would be the best way to say it, with this whole taking Superman off the playing field at this point. Just because I feel like if you use Superman to set up something, you should have him there for the execution. Now, again, there's not saying that Superman won't pop up towards the end. In fact, I think you probably want that to happen. And also, to be fair, Superman's got a lot going on in the Superman title right now, so it's not like they've taken Superman completely out of the DC universe. But it just bugs me a little. Now, as far as this issue, I liked it. It's basically, after all of this setup with Leviathan, let's get back to some of the subplots that we were kind of playing with before. I loved the scenes with Rose and Thorn. I thought that was an interesting way to play with that character. I love also that Thorn hates Lois Lane. That's kind of fascinating, considering that's where the character first premiered, was in Lois's book. Another disappointment, the variant cover wasn't in the digial edition.
The what wasn't? The variant cover.
Variant cover.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was...
I looked through it and it wasn't there. Usually they include that. I wonder why that wasn't there.
Yeah, maybe it was just an oversight. The red eyes of anger, or whatever. I always get that wrong.
Angry red eyes of anger.
Angry red eyes of anger.
Which somebody responded to this week, but with a meme from Toy Story of Mrs. Potato Head going, I packed an extra thing of your angry eyes. So that works as well. No, it was a good issue. I think that it's almost like a Leviathan. Not only is it an event, but it's also an excuse and a chance for Bendis to kind of write some of the characters that we thought he was going to write anyways. Him coming in with Superman was kind of a surprise. I do like that Lois and Superman, the scenes with them in the fortress were really sweet. he kind of excels at those scenes.
Yeah,
the only thing I don't like, the thing that just bugged me, was a picture of Lois kissing Superman, and I'm like, oh, don't do that, don't do that, no. But other than that, great.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. That was a part of the story, the fact that someone's captured a photo of the two of them kissing, which was done in the Lois and Clark TV series, if I recall correctly. And do we really need that here? I mean, isn't there enough going on without throwing that into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, it's good Daily Planet stuff, but where does that go? And is it going to be paid off in a satisfying way, or is it just going to be dropped?
Have to wait and see. So, and talking about wait and seeing, we have a number of new books coming out this week, and some interesting ones and some big ones. So let's get into what's available this week for Superman fans on the comic book front. We have the 12th and final issue of Adventures of the Super Sons, the 12-issue miniseries, maxi series, comes to an end this week. Also out this week is Deceased number 3, which is available in a horror movie cover featuring Superman playing on the Nun poster image from that horror movie, and also a variant cover with a zombified Wonder Woman. Also out is a second printing of Deceased number 1. It's gone to second printing, of course. Out this week as well is Justice League number 27, who are the children of Perpetua, and that is available in this Gorilla Grodd close-up cover, which brings to mind the Faces of DC that they did a while ago, a couple of years back, those close-ups of different characters' faces as variant, or as covers for different DC Comics covers back a while ago. Also out this week, the big one, Lois Lane number 1, the first issue of another 12-issue maxi series, and that too is available in this cool variant cover. And DC have been sending out a number of preview issues of this, and packaged with a nice Daily Planet pen for collectors to grab a hold of. And as the story says, the pen is mightier than the sword or the cape, as the case may be with Lois Lane. And then also out this week is Superman Up in the Sky number 1. This collects together some of those Walmart comic books that were exclusive to Walmart stores, the new stories in the Walmart releases. So if, like me, you were unable to get your hands on those, Superman Up in the Sky is where you'll find those new stories published in the Walmart comics. And that is what's out this week in the world of Superman in comic books.
In the chat, Rob commented that he thinks Bendis wants to reveal his identity like Daredevil. I'm actually not getting that vibe. There was a point where Bendis was, especially if you read interviews or listened to interviews with him, he seemed to have a real mad-on for secret identities and how hard they would be. I think, given all of his comments regarding how Clark Kent is so important, that he wouldn't want to just get rid of that.
No. We already just outed Superman before he came out, didn't we? We had that whole thing.
Yeah, that would have been in his opening move almost, but we saw how well that worked out back in 2015. So, that's me being a little snarky, but yeah, that was a terrible story. So, I do like the fact though that we're getting the Walmart books as kind of like a mini series, and I'm glad people like you can finally read the stories, and especially since the distribution was so spotty anyways, that I was I got issues 1, 2, 3, and then couldn't find 4, and I bought issue 5, and I went, nope, they're going to reprint this at some point. I'll read it then. It's a little sad, but again, it's kind of nice that it's in this kind of nice package, and more people can read it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of Lois Lane #1, we got our first look at pages from this comic book last week, I think it was, and I'm just going to show some of that artwork now. Check out some of the preview images that were released online. This 12-issue maxi series written by Greg Rucka, great writer, with art by Mike Perkins, is out tomorrow, Wednesday, July 3rd. It is the first of a 12-issue maxi series, as I said, and says here that Lois Lane depicts hard-boiled, tough-as-nails investigative journalism. Lois Lane has never worried about speaking truth to power and is the best investigative reporter in the DCU, a detective who has contact information for almost everyone in the DC universe. Researching a widening international conspiracy, Lois has no reservations about putting herself in the crosshairs of the story she's after. So in this new series, we'll see her on the road and out of Metropolis and carrying a secret. And as I said, the first issue is available tomorrow. Make sure you get out and get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the Jimmy Olsen one, but this was the one that I was just like, yep, this is Greg Rucka writing a Lois Lane maxi series. There's no downside to this at all.
No, indeed. So make sure you check that out. Now, I know you're big into the collected editions of certain stories, Michael, and DC announced this past week that they're adding more pages to the 25th anniversary omnibus of 0 Hour. Now, you might want to fill in people on what 0 Hour was, but it's now going to include an extra 120 pages. Wow.
It's like a trade paperback by itself. 0 Hour is celebrating this month, actually, if I'm correct. 0 Hour is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and it was an attempt on the part of DC Comics at the time, led by Dan Jurgens, who wrote and penciled the series, to kind of fix all of the continuity problems that had popped up since Crisis on Infinite Earths. So you had the big example he gave is in Superman number 18, which was published in 1988. There's a story where Hawkman and Hawkwoman take Superman to where Krypton was.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple years later, they did this whole new Hawkman revamp called Hawkworld, and suddenly the story that took place like 2 years ago now didn't happen. And Dan Jurgens was very vocal in thinking that you're not playing fair with the audience. So they did this 5-issue miniseries that counted down. Issue 4 was the first issue. Issue 0 was the last, and it was basically if you were a DC title at the time, you could participate, and you could use the 0 issue that came the next month to kind of fix any problems or introduce something or do whatever. So this omnibus was huge to begin with, because it was going to reprint like a bunch, like all of the crossover issues, and there was like 20 something of those. And now it's going to put even more material in there. And I love that Dan DiDio, when he was talking about this, mentioned that one of the reasons why they did this was to basically give the print edition of the books something that the digital editions won't.
Mm-hmm.
So not only does it have a couple extra stories in it, including Superman the Man of Steel number 0, it has like all these behind the scenes extras and stuff that came out at the time. Like there was like a 0 month like sampler.
Mm-hmm.
And I have all this stuff. I remember collecting it at the time. But now you get to see it again for like the first time, or for some people the very first time. I'm also going to suggest, if you want a hilariously fun like time capsule of the DC universe in 1994, go to YouTube and look up. They issued to comic shops this videotape where you had Parallax, a guy in a Parallax costume, like hosting this thing where they talk to Mike Carlin and Dan Jurgens, and then they talk to all of the editors at DC at the time, and they talk about what's coming up in like Batman and Flash and all that. And it's finally been leaked to YouTube. I had the VHS tape. I still have it. But I am just so happy that this thing is even a thing. And the other good thing about it is, with the extra 120 pages, is that now it will serve as kind of a counterweight to the Death and Return of Superman omnibus that came out this year. So that if you really need to shore up the foundation on your house, it won't be uneven. And I think that was a good smart move on their part.
Yeah, it's as I said, expanded from what they originally decided. It's solicited for September 25 release. It was originally going to be 976 pages. It'll now be 1,096 pages, and it's increased in price by $25 to $150 US. And the new material, as you mentioned, includes that rare 0-month sampler. Also includes Damage #0, Superman Man of Steel #0, and a foreword by Dan Jurgens, and afterward by series editor K.C. Carlson, and an extensive gallery of promotional and behind-the-scenes material. There you go.
And if you see Dan Jurgens at a convention, ask him how much he made drawing the cover to the Zero issue. You'll probably get a good chuckle out of him, because there's nothing on the cover. It's just blank. Well, that was the cool thing. During Zero Hour, when you were reading it, it was a weekly series, so it only went over the course of July. And as the issues went on, there is, right before the Zero issue, the last week, all of the titles that came out the previous week that were published white out at the end of the book, because time stops and it ceases to exist. And it's like one of those series that different of these events, you have like three basic varieties. You have the one where the core series is great and the crossovers just don't mean anything. There's the ones where the core series is great and the crossovers are good. And this is one where the core series is kind of confusing, has some really good artwork, but the crossover issues are so much like, it gave these creative teams a chance to have like a lot of fun. The Guy Gardner Warrior one in particular is just this bat guano crazy look at the really weird things that DC's done over the years. So this is one of those things that I will completely recommend, even though it's got a $150 price tag. You know, if you order it through the link at the Superman homepage, I'm sure it'll take you to a place that has probably a discount of some kind.
Yeah, through
but
Amazon.
No, I think if you've never read this, you know, this is a good chance to do it. I cannot recommend it more.
There you go. Stamp of approval from Michael Bailey. All right. Let's look elsewhere. At the Superman homepage, being the beginning of the month, we have a new Super Trivia quiz up and available for you guys to get involved in. There are 3 new questions. This month's questions are: who voiced the role of Superman in the Justice League Action animated series? The Superman story Light Up the Tree, Mr. President was released in which medium or format? So if you know that. And what is the name of the man who portrayed Superman on Superman Day at the New York World's Fair in 1940? If you think you know the answers to all 3 questions, don't comment here on YouTube or on the website. Go to the website, go under the favorites menu, and you'll find the Super Trivia Quiz. Send in your answers to all 3 questions, and we'll put the names of everyone who got them right on the website in this month's Super Trivia Quiz. I'm sure you know the answers to all those questions.
What was the third question?
What is the name of the man who portrayed Superman on Superman Day at the New York World's Fair in 1940?
Sub-question to that, and what is his connection to the musical 1776?
Okay. I have no idea.
I'll tell you when we're done.
Okay. Off air. So, get involved in this month's Super Trivia Quiz. Head to the Superman homepage, find the Super Trivia Quiz under the Favourites menu. Now, before we wrap up, as many people know, obviously I'm here, from Australia, I'm in Sydney, But my background is Lebanese, and my parents are actually on their way to Lebanon at the moment for a holiday. A beautiful country, despite what you might have heard in the Civil War and everything like that, Beirut has a really bad reputation, unreasonably, because for many years, it was known as the Paris of the Middle East, and many rich and famous people went and holidayed there. And now the city is absolutely beautiful. It's a great place to visit, and if you are thinking of visiting there, which, I mean, most people probably wouldn't, but as a Superman fan, there is a Smallville Hotel. I just found out about this a couple of days ago. The Smallville Hotel is not necessarily directly Superman related. There is no direct reference to Superman other than the fact that it is called the Smallville. It does have some superhero themes in and amongst the decorations there, and it also has a super gym, and the logo for the gym looks very Superman kind of related. And it's the winner of TripAdvisor's 2019 Traveler's Choice Award. It's located in Beirut, Lebanon. It's an urban design hotel where everyone is a superhero in their own way. I found it fascinating that there was this in the country of my origin, as far as my history is concerned, and it just kind of blew me away, and I had to report on it.
Yeah, and it's also, they don't like talking about this, but if you drive a pickup truck into the parking lot, it will explode. Don't know why that is. It's just really weird. But so if you go, don't drive a pickup truck. That was a terrible joke.
That was a terrible joke. Horrible.
I'm sorry. Every episode, the kid truck got trashed on that show, it seemed.
So true. So true. All right, well, also, if you're into drinking water, and like who isn't, there are new Good to Grow Fortified Water featuring pods. Who knew that this was a thing? I'm going to show you the image. They're little bottles of water, fortified water. They've got different flavors. There's orange mango, there's raspberry lemonade, and in the little kind of clear twist off top, there is a character in the lid. And there's different characters, including Batman and Superman. There's minions, there's other characters there, and you can get them, or find out where you can get them, from a website called goodtocollect.com, and you can find where pods are at goodtogrowpods.com. So there you have it. Don't ask me any more about that. I have no idea what they're all about.
That's fascinating. I really don't know how to. I don't know how to feel about it, actually. That's kind of. I don't know.
Well,
one, fortified water in and of itself is a silly concept.
But it's a great note to finish the show on, and we're going to like for 2 weeks. You could just be thinking about fortified water, but let's think about. As I said, we won't be back next week. We'll be back the following week on July 16th. But before we sign off, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's episode of WGBS TV Live. Thanks to everyone in the YouTube comments, and thank you to you, my co-host, Michael Bailey. Thank you, Mike.
Superman looks like he wants the kids to get the kids off his lawn in that thing.
He's very angry. Just needs red eyes, that's all.
As always.
Now, a huge thank you to our sponsor and patron, Douglas Meacham. If you want to sponsor the Superman homepage, head to patreon.com/Superman homepage. You can sponsor the site for as little as $3. Now, the complete 1-hour video of tonight's show will remain available on the Superman homepage website and our YouTube channel. If you'd like to check it out, perhaps you missed part of the show or tuned in late, you can watch the whole thing in full at our website and YouTube. But we'll be back in 2 weeks on July 16th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time for another edition of WGBS TV Live. Look forward to talking to you then. Until then, be sure to check out supermanhomepage.com for all your daily news updates on everything surrounding the Man of Steel. I'm Steve Eunice. On behalf of myself and Michael Bailey, thanks for watching WGBS TV Live, brought to you by supermanhomepage.com.